Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. Let people know that I've gone live. And if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And on my days off, I physically do as much relaxation as I can, knowing that, right, we're going right back into it. And even though the job looks a little bit different, that it's still going to take out of me, right? We're working towards getting a vehicle. And, it's kind of boring. It's kind of monotonous. It's kind of paying attention to how I'm spending my money, beating myself up a little bit when I spend my money. But it's also entertaining myself in inexpensive ways. And that is kind of, for me, in that experience in my life, going all the way back to when I was a little kid, kind of seem like punishment to me. It's because I don't see that immediate reward, right? That car is not here, but I got that money, but I can't spend that money. So I'm not enjoying myself. But in that, especially this week, I've been noticing that there are a lot of lessons in that, a lot of observations that I've been making. And, it is in each one of them. We were talking about choices yesterday. It is in my choices because I could apply myself. Even at the, right, going to be 63 years old. Am I 63 now or? I gotta say 63 years old, you guys, right? That's how much I pay attention to my age, right? I don't I don't dwell on these things, but because they're not top of mind. They're not something that I compulse about. There may have been a time that I might have, but because I am focused and because I feel like I am moving more in a direction than I have in my entire life. And it makes me feel that accomplishment that makes me feel good. And this is what it's all about, right? Even in our jobs, I'm grateful for that job that puts the roof over my head. But one of the things about my job is that it is, for the most part, very enjoyable. We live in a crazy town kind of world right now. So, of course, some of these interactions that we have with each other, they're kind of a little bit haywired, aren't they? You know? So there is that play in that interaction that I have in that job that puts the roof over my head. But for the most part, it's very enjoyable. It's right. You could just take a look at all the things that I score. And if you don't know, I work in a little thrift store. It's the job that puts the roof over my head in the moment and allows me to schedule my life in a way that I can really apply myself to something that's going to serve me. And if I do it right, it's going to serve others very, very well. Right. But I do poop myself out. So on my days off, I kind of like to slow it down physically. But being the person that I am and working on my brand, working on myself, and bringing that to my lives and sharing not necessarily what I've learned, but sometimes it's the observations. Sometimes it's in the frustrations of not getting it. Sometimes it's in the different perspectives. And for me, it's most part, that's what it is because I am, like everybody else, searching out people who think like me, that feel like me, not necessarily live like me because I'm always moving towards living a different way. I'm always moving. I'm always making choices and those small adjustments in the adapt and conquer and that cause and effect of every decision that I make or a decision that somebody else makes that's in the vicinity of my surroundings that affect my life or the lives that interact with me, right? Just as much as I get along with one person, not necessarily do I get to have that relationship with that one person because they have their own surroundings, their own community, their own vicinity, right? And as much as I could get along with them, right, I might not rub well with who's else is in their vicinity. And just because, right, they get along with them, it doesn't mean that I have to. And it just because, you know, they don't get along with one of my friends, that doesn't mean that I have to turn my back or, it's kind of that idea. Well, if you're going to hang out with them, right? Make your choice. It's them or me. The person forcing me into the corner to make that choice would have to be the loser in every instance, right? Because it takes all kinds to make the world, and I am playing my own story, and I only have control of my own vicinity, my own network, right? And if somebody doesn't rub me well, they don't rub me well. And I'm maybe not necessarily rub me well, but rub my life well, right? We are who we surround ourselves with. And I'm always striving to do a little bit better by myself. And it's not my intent to isolate myself. But at the same time, I don't want to be influenced in a way that stops me from smiling in what I'm doing because I should be enjoying what I'm doing. And because I'm adding a little bit of mix of everything into that pot, just so that, if I get bored with one thing in that moment, I still have other things that I have an interest in, that I have a passion for, that I love doing. And so that energy would less likely go towards something that doesn't serve me or serve anybody else. It would most likely just be a change of scenery and just being jumping in to another interest of mine, right? I'm a bit of a multitasker. I am varied in my interests. It's hard for me to reject those things that have pulled me out of difficult times or bring me solace. I didn't want to go outside today, but because I get so heavy sometimes in the lessons that I feel that I need that sharp, crisp, cold air slapping me in the face and waking me up. And, I went for a walk tonight. I had made myself a little grocery list of things to pick up. And I went outside and, right, I stopped at a few trees and did a little bit of exchange in that because I felt that's what I needed. But it makes me feel good, right? If not in actuality, if not in a way of being there in that specific moment when it would be right, that everything hibernates, everything has its moment, and things dissipate and reappear, right, all the time. And so I just wanted to have a moment with connection with Mother Nature. And for me, we line our streets with great big Dutch elms. They're absolutely beautiful. They're absolutely massive. I could put my arms around one of those trees and not even get my arms halfway around them. That's how big and massive they are. And maybe I do look a little odd. I'm not sure. Silly. I could be just standing there resting up against a tree. But when I have to walk into the snowbank to get to the tree, that's when, right, it's something to take note of, right? But I don't have that concern because it's what I felt like I needed in the moment. It made me feel good emotionally. It made me feel good mentally. And just getting out of my apartment, even if it was just for an hour, right? That fresh air just woke me up, right? I got a chore done. I could say I went outside, right? Came home, did a little bit of tidy, burn out the last of that residue of what I was taking in, the cost, the energy, the siphoning through all the topics and conversations and the messaging and the connecting with the people in my life. And, right, a little bit of planning for the future. I was in looking at cars and trucks and SUVs. It sure would be nice to get a nice little SUV. I am working towards it, but part of that cheering me up is to go in, and when I'm bored or done or fed up in one aspect of what I'm trying to accomplish, I go right into something else that I want to do. And that was to get in and take a look what I can get for the money, right? That I feel I'm most likely able to accomplish in the span that I've given myself to save money. And so I'm looking at vehicles and looking what I can do and wondering of little ways that maybe I could bump that little bit of money up so I could get something with a little bit more better mileage, right? Because that means less wear and tear on the car, the vehicle itself, right? And also have that opportunity because spring is coming up that maybe everybody is thinking about getting new vehicles this year. People are feeling a little bit, or they were anyway, at Christmas time. Really felt that people were pulling together again, and right, they were a little bit more optimistic for the future and stuff. Right, things go a little bit haywire, a little bit crazy town, but it's only in the buckling up. And sometimes it's just taking the eraser and wiping the board down and starting fresh, starting new, that we could actually even make it uh, more feasible, more enjoyable, right? Lot less frustration, or a lot less frustrating, and a little bit more. I was gonna say productive, but I don't mean productive. I mean beneficial. That's what I meant. A little bit more beneficial in the end. Okay, you guys. So I just meant to come in. I wasn't gonna go back into the topic of change today because, well, in that little bit of staying in the house, relaxation, regrouping from dollar days, taking in a few lessons in those few things that I did around the house, going outside a little bit for a little bit of tree hugging and grocery shopping, that I am done with my day. Right, back to work tomorrow in that job that puts the roof over my head. Grateful for that job, and I truly am grateful for that job, right? Lots of people don't have the opportunity to put in a few hours, to make a few dollars, to put milk on the kids' cereal, or repair into a vehicle, right? Or a prom dress, or a birthday gift, right? It's in these small kindnesses that we can do for each other that kind of make it so that when we are in the dark, that there's a moment of lightness. It's in those moments of lightness that make us recognize that the darkness can't stay forever. And even if it does hang out a little bit, there will be intermittent, right? moments of joy, right? Okay, you guys. Let's grab a word here. First perspective, first thing that comes to my mind. We'll just go into it for a couple of minutes. Let's have a sip of my no. Let's have a sip of my cranberry 7-Up juice. Trying to rehydrate. I don't know how good of a job I'm doing, but not having any Charlie horses, so I'm doing a lot better than I usually do. Okay, you guys, let's pick this card. Okay, it's two words, and I think they belong together because they were kind of pertinent about what we were just talking about, right? And finding that joy, that happiness for ourselves. Sometimes we do get into those ruts. Sometimes we don't have those other passions and joys in our lives because we're so focused in on that. Well, we kind of ignore our surroundings. We kind of ignore the possibilities that we could be wrong, or there's another solution, or that there are people that are missing our company, that there are other things in our lives that we can be if we choose to have in our lives, to pay a little bit attention to something else so that we're not so hyper focused on that one thing. And sometimes that requires that we pivot in our understandings of things, not just pivot in our understanding of things. Sometimes we actually have to physically pivot, right? And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, about when we were talking about change and we were talking about choices, right? To each one of us, we get to make those choices in our lives. Right? When we know, we feel, right? There are things in my life that I know that I should be making choices and just making outright change in what I'm doing. But sometimes it's the need for money. Sometimes it is in loyalty. Sometimes it's in that tiredness, right? That needing your rest. Sometimes it's just not having the answer. It's just confusion as to what to do. But we know we have to do something. Now I wrote here on the card, pivot is simply a try again, right? Okay. So getting back to the word pivot and going back to what we were talking about yesterday when we were talking about change and how it goes hand in hand with the choices that we make. That sometimes change is coming. Change is coming. It's happening, right? But sometimes we can lessen the blows with a little bit of cush of a good decision, right? Sometimes it's just in cleaning up the mess in our lives. Sometimes it's just making that decision and just saying I'm just fed up. It's right, it's coming, and if I don't do something, something drastic is going to come into my life and it's just going to turn everything upside down on the head. I would much rather make that choice. I would much rather make that first move myself than to have my life whipped out from underneath me, or have my life just kind of twisted in a 90-degree turn that I don't know whether I'm coming or I'm going. And I'm scaring myself and possibly scaring others in my unpreparedness, right? So sometimes that pivot, right, is just like that. It's simply a try again. It's just simply finding another way. It's just recognizing that, you put enough time, you put enough effort into something. I've done it many, many times. And I'm sure that I will do it again. I will give up. But I will never give up, truly, because I will just dust myself off and I will find another way. But wouldn't it be great if I knew before I crashed that there was going to be another way? That I knew that I had a little bit of cush stored away for that rainy day. And that rainy day, if I choose for it to be, could be right now, even for me, right now. Just make that decision, just commit to it and say, that's it. Knowing that change is coming no matter what. But wouldn't you much rather be the captain at that wheel? Right? Right? It's less scary. You have a little bit more bearing, or at the very least, a little bit more say in the direction that you want to go. And sometimes, in just knowing that, right, takes a lot of stress off of us, right? But we have to remember, we have to smile in that. So, whatever decisions that we make, right, we have to smile that we were a little bit prepared. We have to smile because we made a good decision, that we were going into something that makes us feel good. Or we have the backup plans that when it's difficult, that when you really have to push through, when you really are struggling, when you are really working towards that car, that you have other distractions, so that when you're a little bit disillusioned, or when you want to give up, or you need to take a break, and got to get away from this, that, instead of just disappearing into something that's not going to serve me or you or anybody else, that we have something else that we love, right? That we can just jump into and hack away at it, right? Whistle while you work. Okay, you guys, that's my good chair. We'll see you tomorrow.